Hello and welcome to Bell to Bells, your women's wrestling wire. I am Mr. Warren Hayes. Thank you very much for joining us once again today. And it's interview time. It's interview time here on Bell to Bells. And today I am thrilled to be joined by someone who works not necessarily in the ring, that we're not used to seeing in the ring. We talk to a lot of wrestlers, but today we got something special. We are talking today, we're going to have a chat with Impact's backstage correspondent and co-host of Before the Impact. Ladies and gentlemen, let's say hello to Gia Miller. Gia, hello and welcome to Bell to Bells.
Hello, welcome, or you welcoming me. Thank you. Thank you.
See,
That's exactly what I do as an interviewer. Just, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for having me. It's so strange to be on the other side.
That's exactly the stuff that happens. And I was about to say, do you realize how intimidating it is to be interviewing an interviewer right now? Because right now, I know you're like, you're looking at everything I'm saying, you're checking out everything I'm doing, I feel scrutinized right now.
So far, you're doing an excellent job.
Please. It's not as if I was fishing for compliments now. Gia, it is a pleasure to have you. We do know you from all your work that you do on Impact, interviewing the numerous wrestlers that they have there, and as I mentioned, on your work on Before the Impact as well. But you began in the business as a wrestler. How did this transition to being an interviewer happen?
I call myself the jack of all trades. I'm a woman of many hats because in addition to wrestling or interviewing, I still wrestle. I don't do that for Impact, but I had just started right before I started interviewing.
Right.
I had 10 matches, only 2 of them being singles matches. And I was really in the right place at the right time. I was right before COVID started. Impact was in Atlanta, and my trainer, Action Mike Jackson, the 7-year-old superstar.
Shout out.
Yes, absolutely. He's also my tag partner. He was going to Impact tapings, and he said, "Why don't you go with me? It would be great for you to just go meet some people, help out. You probably won't do anything, but it would just be a good opportunity." And I said, absolutely, 100%. So we drove to Atlanta together, and I had the great fortune of meeting Madison Rayne as soon as I walked in the door. She was the first face that I saw, and I sat down and had a conversation with her, and we just really, we meshed. And later on that night, she asked me, "Have you ever done any interviewing before?" And I was like, well, I have a degree in journalism. I've done interviewing, but not for professional wrestling.
Right.
But I'm definitely down to try. She said, okay. We'll see. We're actually looking for an interviewer right now. And funnily enough, other people in the locker room that knew me, Sami Callihan being one of them.
Okay.
Tommy Dreamer, actually another one, vouched for me. Cool. I had met Tommy twice. We had very great conversations both times, and I'd known Sammy for about 2 years at that point. And they both vouched for me. At least that was the word that got back to me, that they had both vouched for me and said that I was very professional and that I would do a good job. Unfortunately, that tryout that I was supposed to happen that day fell through, and I said, that's okay. I've got my foot in the door. Sure. Like, that is the best it could have gone today. That was the best. That was like putting my makeup on that morning. That was the dream scenario, right? That like they would somehow have something that I was perfect for.
Yeah.
Well, literally a week later, I'm in Dayton, Ohio, visiting Sami Callihan, Jessica Havoc, and Ace Austin for spring break. What was supposed to be a 3-day trip turned into COVID.
Yeah.
And I was here for 3 months. And now I live in Dayton. I just never left.
You're just there now.
But once they started having conversations about like, let's get back in the studio, let's start filming some stuff. someone had asked if I was there, and I was. They knew I was quarantined with their people. I was the most convenient option. I was literally in the right place at the right time.
Fantastic.
And they brought me down. So that was my audition, was 6 weeks of TV, which was so
Must have been a little, yeah, it must have been a little intimidating to start
very
off.
intimidating. From going, like, I didn't do anything local. Everything that I had done up until this point was assignments. It was never broadcast.
Like
And
what kind of assignments had you done up to this point?
like my broadcast classes, I had
Okay.
done like, oh, write a short piece on this. It needs to be a minute and 30 seconds.
So when you're talking assignments, you're really talking like class assignments.
Yes,
Okay,
class
okay.
assignments. Like not,
Right.
I was still in college at this point.
Right.
I actually graduated college in the middle of COVID. And so it was very intimidating, and like they were very in a very kind, very nice. No one was ever condescending to me. And like they just kind of wanted to see what I could do. So they
Sure.
kind of test the waters, and like with each one, they kind of gave me a little bit more and gave me a little bit more until over the course of weeks and months, now here I am doing the celebrations. I'm doing BTI. I have way more segments than I used to, because in the very beginning, I also split those interview segments with Jimmy Jacobs was also interviewing at that time. So, and now Jimmy said, all right, you're good. You can take it. But it's really been an incredible year. Rebellion was my first thing that I did. So I've been there for a whole year now, and they keep bringing me back. So
you must be doing something right. Either that or Jimmy Jacobs just wants to unload all his work on you. It's either or, right?
It's one or the other. Either way, I'm thankful.
There you go. You referred to yourself as Mean Gia Miller, right? There's always that little. Is that a tribute to a certain former legendary wrestling broadcaster in and about himself?
It certainly is. And it was not a name that I gave myself, although I would have gladly. I wouldn't have given myself that name because I don't feel that I deserved it. But Tommy Dreamer actually gave me that name.
Look at that.
He, which was the biggest compliment, and I was running with it. So yeah, and it's funnily enough, when I first like heard that, okay, we're going to bring you down, I was like, well, I need to watch some interviewers. Like, I've watched these interviews, but I'd never really paid much attention to the interviewers because they were good at their jobs. They weren't a distraction. And then of course there were always times, like, of course, Mean Gene, he was always super involved, and he really became a persona, and that was like, that's what I want to do. And so he was one that I watched very heavily to see reactions and how involved they were. And so he was someone I was very much inspired by. And it just so happened that in an interview one day, Tommy Dreamer goes full old school and calls me Mean Gia and to call the hotline. And I said, okay. And I will absolutely, and I ran with it because it was the highest of compliments for me. And it's an aspiration to be at that same level of Mean Gene. I mean,
Sure.
You know his voice, you know his face, you know his name.
Nothing wrong with wanting to emulate the best.
Absolutely.
Right? Or at least try to achieve what they have, if not emulating it about itself. You know, there's a lot of misconceptions sometimes when it comes to the role of, you know, backstage interviewers or backstage correspondents, especially when it comes to being a woman, right? But you said it yourself, you know, you've looked at tapes from interviewers of the past, you know, getting inspiration from there. What do you think is actually the hardest part of being a backstage correspondent and maybe having to deal with these preconceived notions that we have?
I think for me personally, and it's not so prevalent when I'm doing interviews because I'm focusing, I have a very, very strong Southern accent.
Okay.
And that can be very distracting if that bleeds through too much. Of course, I still want to show my personality, and there will be one or two words that'll still slip through. But it's, and also, I guess there's a big preconceived notion with that backstage correspondents, backstage interviewers for professional wrestling aren't wrestling fans. They aren't wrestling interviewers.
Sure.
They're just people that wanted to be in broadcast. And that does indeed happen sometimes. But like, who's gonna, like, why dig on them for doing their job, you know?
Sure.
But I think that is the difference between me and some others, is that I am a professional wrestler in addition to being an interviewer. And I also have a degree in journalism. This is another passion of mine. It's not, this is what was available and I just took this job, or I just wanted to be on TV on a wrestling show, so I took this job. This was another passion of mine that I was so happy to see come to fruition. It was something that I was kind of sad that I almost might have to abandon, or maybe I would pick up another day, but I got to come in that way.
Right.
And it's been a real learning experience for me as a wrestler as well, being around the knockouts and being around all of these people that have so many years of experience. I will say, like, other people in the broadcast realm within Impact, Josh Matthews, John Burton, David Penzer, they've all been very, very helpful to me with just giving me notes.
It's a great group.
Like, yes, elevating me. I'm very young. I'm 23. This was my first big girl job. And it would be very easy for them with years and years and years of experience to be like, oh, so you got hired because you're a cute little girl.
Right.
And you are cheap. Right. And it's like, no, they have treated me with the utmost respect. And even when I've fallen short on things, they were never critical of me. They were only helpful.
Good.
So it's been a really great experience.
Sounds like a great environment. What got you into the wrestling business? Why did you decide to become a wrestler in the first place?
It was a melting pot of different reasons. I grew up loving wrestling. I watched it with my dad. Every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday night, whatever night it was on, we were watching wrestling. And then I became an athlete when I got to be a little bit older. I played basketball for 9 years. I was a cheerleader for 9 years. Lots of things that I really think unintentionally prepared me for wrestling. And then as I got even older, I got into theater. I got into performance. I got into entertaining and being a spectacle. So why not do both? Sure. I went to college and I graduated college with degrees in theater, creative media, journalism, and telecommunications, and film. So it's...
I feel if we had 5 more minutes, you'd keep adding more degrees. That's quite a laundry list.
But it's all things that could help prepare me for wrestling, sure. Because I wanted that education and that different approach. Everyone, has their own unique way of how they got into it, and mine was kind of a little bit of a scholastic way. I went into college. My major, my bachelor's degree, is in theater, and it would have been very easy for all of my theater professors to be like, oh, so you are just disrespecting this art and blah, blah, blah. And I only had that happen once. Every other professor was super, super supportive, and they geared things in class specifically for me. And like when I had assignments and stuff, I could do them specifically on wrestling as theater and as a performance aspect, rather than I don't know what else you would call it. That is what it is.
Sure.
Sports entertainment. And I combined those things and decided I wanted to start training, and I started training my junior year of college and started wrestling my senior year of college. So
Well, there you go. And it's interesting that the whole aspect of wrestling being a form of entertainment. It's interesting because you kind of feel like it's becoming more and more accepted as one part spectacle, one part sport. So if you were able to apply that in your
Sure.
works in college, then you're like, oh well, okay. The,
Hmm.
the acceptance is becoming a little wider then.
Oh yeah.
Would you like to wrestle in an impact ring at some point?
Yes.
Oh, that
Yes.
that was okay. No hesitation.
100%. And that was something that I made clear coming in, was that I have lots of goals for myself in wrestling. Wrestling is only one of them.
Sure.
I have so many goals, for over the course of my life, of things that I want to work towards within the world of wrestling. And I'm so glad that this is the one that I got to start with and I got to achieve right off the bat. That, like, it's really hard to not be super proud of that. Um, but Impact Wrestling has been, especially the women's wrestling, has always been a focal point. It's
Hmm.
always been very, like, taken seriously. Uh, and at the same time, all of these women have been able to be whatever they wanted to be.
Hmm.
There was no this or that.
Yeah.
You have to be this big behemoth, and you have to be masculine and scary, or then you have to be dainty and feminine, and you could be whatever you wanted to be.
Right.
And that's me. I'm somewhere in the middle. And there's so many women that are, we're all in the middle. Like, there's very few of us that are those true extremes, and you get to be yourself and you get to be what you want to be in Impact Wrestling. And that is something that I want to do as well. Oh, excuse my cat, she's also here for this interview.
Look,
um
we are pet friendly here. It's not a problem. I'm thrilled
she
she. I'm glad she joined us. Fantastic. Who would you like to be your first opponent then?
Oh gosh, my first opponent. Well, see, that's a loaded question because I have my dream opponents, but if it's my first opponent,
Mhm.
how's it gonna go? Uh,
True.
like, I mean, because of course my immediately the name that came to my head was Jessica Havoc, but I know if that was my first match, I would be. It may be my last. She may murder me. Uh, but that is something that I want to see happen. And it's really hard for me to pick just one because all of those women are incredible.
Hmm.
And it's I wanna take on all of them.
Who would be your dream opponent then?
Dream opponent, like, that could happen or that probably won't.
Let's do both.
Okay. So I'll start off with the probably won't, because my dream opponent would have been China. She, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, she was a huge inspiration of mine. And I mean, who was she not a huge inspiration for? She's incredible. But she was definitely one. And then I think my next dream opponent is Jessica.
Really?
She has a very intense and incredible style, and I would love to see us. And mine's very different, so I would love to see us how we work together, or work against each other in a ring. It would be really incredible, because
Yeah.
even though I'm not as experienced as her, I'm not as strong as her, I am not as skilled as her, I am stubborn as hell. And I will not go down. Even if you put me in a ring with her tomorrow, I would not go down without a fight. That fight may be a minute and a half, but it would be a fight. It would be everything that I could give.
Well, there you
And
go.
the,
I think you're aiming high, and I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. Just to wrap this up really quickly, how about would you like to do a little word association with
Sure.
me? Well, I'll drop you some impact names, and you can just give me a quick word that pops into your mind when I mention them.
Okay.
Let's start with an easy one. Ace Austin,
Scumbag.
the Good Brothers. Hmm.
Brotherly.
Well, good. That's very good. Gail Kim,
Oh, iconic.
the Knockouts Championship.
Oh, the championship itself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think of a bigger word than iconic. Um, Historic.
Oh, very good. Josh Alexander.
Josh Alexander. Oh my gosh. This may be. Hold on, I have to think of the nice way to say this. It's not a mean comment. It's not a mean comment. It has to be an appropriate way to say this because I want to say one mean insert blank here. Here, we'll just say that.
Okay.
one tough insert word.
Very good. Satoshi Kojima.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Legendary.
And let's wrap it up. Jordan Grace.
Oh my gosh. Powerful.
Well, that's a spot on for that.
Yeah, powerful.
Absolutely that. Well, this was a wonderful talk, Gia. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining me today. In case people would like to follow you, after seeing everything that you do on Impact, what would be the best places to follow Mean Gia Miller on the social media?
That would be in Instagram and Twitter. I almost said Impact because Impact's always on the brain. Instagram and Twitter. That would be at Mean Gia Miller, all one word. Both of those have a link in my bio that can lead you to all my other stuff, my pro wrestling tees, my merch store, everything that you can think of is all on there. And you can also catch me every Thursday night on BTI at 7:00 Eastern time, and then immediately following on Impact Wrestling. And that comes on Access TV and on Twitch as well at the same time.
There you go. You can watch her on Impact try to pick fights with Kenny Omega when he shows up, which is always a good thing, if you ask me. Gia, it really was a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you everyone for listening and watching today right here on youtube.com/bell2bells. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you're not already subscribed, you know the rigmarole. I don't need to walk you through it. Thank you all so very much for joining me. We'll see you next time.